the Jordan brand, they reached out to me, which was a surprise.
Were they like the number one dream client at the time?
Oh, for sure. Especially coming from the basketball background, man. And it just aligned. And that came back from like being in Milwaukee, small Milwaukee, you know?
Yeah.
Marquette University is a Jordan brand school.
Sure.
And they're doing a promotional run with that. So they're looking at Milwaukee photographers and they reached out to me.
Welcome back, friends. Today I drove to Milwaukee, Wisconsin to chat with a photographer who's a Wisconsin native, but has traveled the world shooting photos for major brands including Verizon, Dove, Under Armour, Jordan, Stella Artois, Alaska Airlines, Vice, Booking.com, and many, many, many more. Welcome to the show, Jarvis Lawson.
Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, thank you for having me. Where are we right now? This is a cool spot.
We are in the 3rd Ward, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Buffalo Street. Let's go.
What's special about this building? Because there's like a bunch of people in it, but was this like a factory or something at one point, or what is it?
I can't pinpoint exactly the logistics and the history of it, but I just know this building particularly is filled with a lot of creativity, which is amazing. And so just blessed to get this place going, especially with the first podcast in this building for Harmonic Harvest. So stoked, man.
Yeah, this is cool that's been able to come together like this. It seems like Milwaukee has a really diverse group of artists and creatives that just like work downtown here. Like there's a ton of people doing all kinds of different stuff in this building. Just in the little bit we walked around, I don't know how many vendors there were, but quite a few. Do they do events like monthly or anything where everyone just kind of gets together, like art fairs or anything like that?
Yeah, totally. Especially around this time of the year, late April into May. Obviously into the summer, there's weekly events, man. From the Jazz Fest to like block party vibes with creatives and patrons that want to gather around and embrace us. It's amazing.
Do you think that the roads are horrible specifically because they want to push people to walk instead? Dude, your roads suck.
The roads are really bad, and I've sprained my ankles a few times running on the road. Dude. I say like 2 months ago, man, I sprained my ankle. I got too cocky running on the road.
Sure.
Felt like I was like the main character in a movie. Ran through past lights, looking at cars, and boom, big ass pothole, man. So,
dude, I'm telling you, as far as like all the big cities I've been to, this like downtown Milwaukee has the worst driving situation, but arguably the best walking situation. So let's get back to who you are. In your own words, who are you and what are you passionate about?
Yeah, so I am a 34-year-old professional photographer, self-taught, man, come from humble beginnings, and it's just been a long road, but it's been a successful road each year, progressively meeting people, gaining experiences, seeing the world through the lens and how I see things. It's just been a wonderful.
Yeah, and it all started with like a phone, so no excuses. Anyone who's sitting there like, I can't get started because I don't have money or whatever, everyone can afford at least an old phone, even if it's not on a network, right? Let's go before that. You played basketball for a long time, right?
Yep.
Are you still a big basketball fan, I assume?
Yeah, still basketball, man. Got a basketball tattoo when I was like, 17. I thought I was the dude back in high school, but yeah, played basketball. We won a couple state championships down in Racine, St. Catharines.
Oh, wow.
And then played D2 at UW Parkside for a couple of years, but was injury prone, and that's when I stumbled across photography.
Were you doing photography when you were still in college or no?
Late senior year, yes.
Well, what were you going to college for then?
Criminal justice. It was like I know, man. It was basically just a filler to graduate with when you're playing sports. You know, you're like a classic athlete. You know, you want to go overseas, but I found out I'm too short and I can't pursue it. You know, so it was like, okay. It was like the perfect storm studying criminal justice, but however, stumbling across Instagram in 2012, that's what led me to like an iPhone.
Yeah, which was like right at the very beginning of when Instagram was popping.
Exactly, man. It was the golden era is what we call it. From 2012 to 16 was just pure bliss.
So you're still in college when did you graduate? Did you finish? You get your degree, or you're like, I'm not using this anyways?
Nope. Finished.
So you just or you did finish it?
Yeah. Okay. So finished it, but it was just blanketed, you know, like I knew once I stumbled across photography that it was like,
oh, okay, cool. So how quickly did that take off? I'm trying to imagine the timeline here. So 2013, you have a phone, you come across Instagram and you're like, oh, well, I can just take cool photos using an iPhone. And especially because you're only looking at it on like this little bitty screen.
Yeah, back
in
those days.
You can't tell how many megapixels it is, right?
Yeah, and it was the iPhone 4S, the little black.
Yeah. The little
black
one.
That was, So
did you break any of those screens?
I did several times, man. I dropped it so many times, and the girlfriend I was dating at the time, she was not pleased, man.
What was the first photo you remember taking that you were like stoked about?
So the first one, I was sitting. I remember this vividly. I was sitting in an English course at Parkside, and I'm scrolling through my Android at the time, and I see this rad photo of a New York cityscape shot on iPhone. And, like, I saw the hashtag. I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
iPhones can do this. So I got tapped in.
And then, the hashtag was iPhone only, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. iPhone only,
yeah.
iPhone 4, and saved up, got a phone, and then the rest was history. Started shooting religiously.
Yeah. What did you do with any of those photos? I know it was like a year-ish before you actually got like a DSLR or whatever. Mm-hmm. So were you doing, I guess with all the photos with your phone, were you exclusively just like posting them to Instagram and growing a following on there? Or did you kind of start having people go, oh, even though this is just a phone, can you do product photography for us? Or like, how did that kind of evolve?
Yeah. So once again, back like to reiterate to the golden era, man.
Yeah.
It was just a joyful time of exploration.
Yeah.
My style of photography back then was grittiness, exploring abandoned buildings and so forth. So for me, I wasn't thinking about product photography. I knew it was something that I loved passionately. Like this, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing photography.
Sure.
But I just wasn't sure how to progress, and that happened years later. But to answer your question, it was just solely abandonment, architecture.
Sure.
All through my phone, all through Instagram. And back in those days, like I said, there was different groups, whether it was like the Midwest photographers or iPhoneographers is what we call each other, you know?
Yeah.
There was a Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, and we would be like in a WhatsApp group chat, so to speak.
Oh, really?
Back in those days, yeah.
Like a forum or anything like that? Because I know there was a forum back in the day called Skate Perception, growing up a skateboarder. That forum was exclusively for like video and photography of skateboarding.
Yeah.
And I was a member of that. And it was so cool to be able to like, I would put up the little edits that I would do and someone would say, oh, you do not a warped zoom, but whatever. When it's a slow-mo where it like warps in and out, you know what I'm talking about? A ramp slow-mo. And they would like explain this is exactly how you do it. It was like, wow, this is such a cool community to be able to do that. How do you do that though in something like WhatsApp? I feel like, I'm not saying it was WhatsApp specifically, but I feel like your phone would just be vibrating constantly and you'd be scrolling back trying to find anything. Was it just on the phone like that?
Yeah, we had a group chat. Like I said, for me, what was unique was I was the only one in Milwaukee representing the Midwest besides Chicago photographers.
Sure.
But there was, now that they're pretty large photographers, whether it's in Canada / New York, and then LA, San Francisco vibes, we would all be in this pool of creativity talking about what we want to shoot, if we can come visit and collaborate and so forth.
How did you connect with them? Was that after you got interviewed by Instagram and they were like, oh, look at this wonderful photographer in the middle of nowhere. You should connect with this guy.
Yeah, it was a mixture of both. Back in those days, I sound like an old man. Keep saying back in those days in the golden era.
I'm older than you. Barely, but
just barely, dude. But back in those days, as again, it was a heck of a lot easier to pinpoint and find creatives, you know?
Yeah.
Versus now where it's overly saturated. So it wasn't hard to find us.
So what was the first opportunity that came to you from that? Was it somebody out in San Francisco saying, hey, come shoot this with me. You have a couch to sleep on? Or what was the first thing that happened?
So the first large gig that I had, I didn't take it because it seemed a bit sketchy, but do you remember Tumblr?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty heavy on there, making waves through like the underground scene through the Midwest because we were known for, particularly in Milwaukee, for our someone found me through Bloody Marys because we're known to put like large chickens on the Bloody Marys, man.
Yeah. Full rotisserie chickens.
Yeah. Someone looked up like Bloody Marys hashtag Milwaukee and they stumbled across me. And this happened to be a person that was working with Virgin Airlines at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they reached out and they wanted to do like a full continental shoot through multiple states. So that's when I kind of knew like I'm onto something.
Sure.
In terms of shooting professionally.
But that was way after you got a DSLR then, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't just iPhone photos they found?
Not way after. Honestly, it was probably 5-6 months after I just had it. So like I had the confidence, but I didn't know how to progress and get to that stage of shooting big time.
Well, I mean, honestly, just the fact that break came to you. I am a firm believer that if you're good at what you do and you put out good work, eventually opportunities will come your way either way.
Exactly.
You know, but the fact that something stumbled upon you like that early and you were able to take advantage of it is pretty cool. So did you then go travel for that? Or was that something you said, it just didn't feel right, so you didn't do it?
It just didn't feel right because deep down I knew it would have been a rad opportunity, but I knew I wasn't ready for like the big league, so to speak, because I only had one little camera. It was a DSLR, but it wasn't a big rig. It came with a kit lens, you know, like I knew I had my boundaries.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what were you doing for work then during that whole time frame? And how long was it before you were like able to make it your career?
Timeline wise, after college, I needed a real job.
Right.
Because, can't be broke.
Yeah.
So I worked in a factory.
Okay.
Making LED lights.
Sick.
And it was like straight out like the 8 Mile movie, man. I hated it. So like quickly the staff and like my coworkers caught wind that I was a photographer.
Yeah.
And I would always call out every other week. If I woke up and it was foggy out, I'd drive to Chicago and take photos.
Oh, sure.
Not knowing that I'm accumulating points to get myself fired,
Yeah.
It's like I've always been against the grain when it came to that. But
sure.
Long story short, worked at a LED factory, assembling lights, third shift and then first shift.
Sure.
And then got fired from that because of my photography.
Wow. But were you able to then just go straight photography after that? Like you had enough income coming in or no?
Shortly after that. So like I knew one of the pivotal moments were I have a twin brother. And he worked in LED lighting with me.
Oh, sure.
But he was excelling because he loved it,
Sure.
He wanted to climb. But me, I'm an artist. I'm like, man, there's something out there for me. Like I need to do something that's been grasping my brain in terms of photography and creativity. So like every day I'd wake up and I kid you not, man, it sounds so stupid, but coming from an athletic background, like back in those days, I'd sleep with my basketball. I'd sleep with my camera. I kid you not.
Sure.
Just sitting on the couch, learning the settings and just like this constant click of like apertures and ISO and like, how can I get better,
Yeah.
So
you didn't have a significant other then at the time?
Nope.
I'm just trying to imagine like girlfriend laying next to you and you're like, sorry.
Yeah. That's another story, man. I've had a lot of breakups pursuing my career to get to where I am for a lot of sacrifice. But the moment I was sitting at the factory, we were on break, me and my colleagues and my twin, is when I got the interview from Instagram itself, and it came out while I was on break.
Wow.
And everyone's on their phones, maybe like 5 to 10 people like, oh, what the heck? Is that Jarvis? Like they're looking at me in my little lab coat thing, factory coat, like we work with them. How is he on Instagram getting interviewed? And like, okay, this is some potential. And that opened up a whole can of opportunities.
Did you just get a DM from them out of the blue where you were like, is this really Instagram that's messaging me right now?
Yeah.
Wild, dude.
Yeah, I went to DM and then to two people that worked there through email. And then we coordinated on the phone with the interview.
Oh, it was a phone interview? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Because I think you sent it to me and it was just print, right? It was just text with photos and stuff kind of showcasing your work. Yeah. And that was like a series. They showcased quite a few artists, right? You were in the like 70s or something. Like they were doing that for a little while, huh?
Yeah, that was a pretty cool series to see. And like I was just stoked and honored to be part of that.
Yeah, so I was reading more, like you'd sent me a couple interviews, which you really haven't done that many. So I guess I want to ask you that question. Why? I'm sure you've had a lot of people ask you, but like you've stayed pretty behind the scenes considering like how many shoots, how many brands, like you've been around, but this is like the second long form interview that I could ever find.
Yeah. So one thing about me growing up through my high school, college career, I was very shy, so to speak.
Sure.
Until maybe the last 6 years, I've been pushing my brand more out there, putting work out to get to where I want to go. But in terms of interviews, I've had plenty of opportunities, but I just wanted to kind of stay dormant. That's been like my thing. Just work quietly.
Sure.
Because I'm a real photographer, dude. Just like shoot, work with these clienteles, build relationships, meet rad people, and just keep my head going.
Which is funny though, because like when you're a photographer that comes up in social media, usually it's kind of the opposite, right? Those types of people who are on social media are loud personalities, understand building the brand is almost more important than like the products are, because I know a lot of photographers that don't really use social media, but they do big campaigns for different people, or they shoot the best weddings, or they shoot, whatever, and they're crushing it financially. Their business is great, but they're just like not on socials. But you are very much on socials. You got like 100-some thousand followers on Instagram, but you're still like not really speaking. You're kind of like just putting the work out, which I think is kind of cool. So one of the first things that I saw, which I think it said 2017, you went to Helsinki, right? Really curious how you get hired by, that was Visit Helsinki, right? Like their tourism department or something?
Yeah, My Helsinki.
Yeah, there you go. How in the world does that line up? Someone just found you on Instagram and was like, this makes sense to fly you out here? Like, I'm really curious to hear the story of it.
Yeah, totally, man. So after building this timeline again, after with the Instagram interview, that led to more confidence and like, okay, I'm really building up a name.
Yeah.
utilize it. Obviously, you have this window of opportunity of success. So with photography, it's such a cutthroat field to be in.
Yeah.
I did a lot of homework, a lot of studying photographers, and I was on a podcast 2016 from a guy in Minnesota.
Okay.
And him and I talked. When I did the interview, I was just once again, like I said, solely shooting abandonment, architecture, very grittiness. But after the podcast, we talked and had a very powerful conversation. And he asked me, he's like, Jarvis, what do you really want to do with photography? I'm like, man, I'm showcasing this grittiness of Milwaukee and Chicago, but deep down, I want to thrive and be commercial in terms of traveling,
Yeah.
So he led me to a connection, which led to another connection, which led to my first gig with Visit California. But that was a lot of phone calls, a lot of rejections, a lot of emails from a multitude of traveling agencies.
Yeah.
And I kind of just put two together. Like, you can really make it if you have the tenacity to do so.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just like, it's not stupid to say the Wayne Gretzky quote, but the overly said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But it is like my buddy, Timmy the Dreamer, Timmy Bishop, he was a guest on the show recently, and he's trying to be the first person to speak, like public speak in all 50 states at public schools.
Wow.
And he does motivational speaking and stuff. And he's struggling to fill up his calendar. He's trying to find 10 more states or whatever for the fall. And he was posting just through his social media that look, I only need a 1% closing rate for this to work. You don't need that many. So if you're shooting enough shots, you're kind of gonna get it. But a lot of people, they just get discouraged, including myself. If you reach out to enough people and you hear no over and over and over again, you start to question yourself, is this because I'm not good enough right now? When usually the real answer is they're saying not yet, not no. They're just right now it doesn't make sense. And that could be for a million reasons that aren't you. It could be they don't have the budget right now. It could be they already committed to doing something else right now, so they can't back out on that. It could be that they're just strategy is in a different direction. I work with Quick Trip. It took me a year and a half to start working with them because they weren't trying to advertise in podcasting.
Yeah, opportunity, man.
Yeah, it's just the timing didn't make sense. So your first one was with, you said Visit California?
Visit California, that was 2016. And once I knew that I can get paid to do it and take my traveling expenses get paid for, and they can put me in these amazing places, and trusted my eye in photography, I knew the sky was the limit. And that led to confidence. For me, to say, putting experiences on your belt notcher, so to speak. So okay, I got Visit California. Immediately go to Instagram and type in a country or a state or a city, and you can pull up their tourism boroughs, So it's the Nordics. No one's really talking about it at the time. Everyone's going to France or Spain, Dubai, and so forth.
Yeah.
But I reached out to Helsinki, and I'd say maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a response from them, and we got the ball rolling.
And that was just through DMs initially?
Through email.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not the one to gatekeep. So I can give out information.
Totally.
My tactic for me was okay, research these places on Google, their Instagram, type in their names. Okay. Go to their government site, find the PR people, call them, put a name or a voice to my artwork, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then go from there. But it's the fine line of being a nuisance, but yet being relative,
Yeah. Well,
things take time.
It's a difference when you're asking for something when you're versus presenting an opportunity with somebody, right? I know it's now if you were to ask someone on a date and they say no repeatedly, stop it, right? But if you're asking and you're approaching a brand with an opportunity saying, hey, I would really love to work with you, a brand isn't going to be you're being a stalker. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Exactly. They're oh, you're standing out because you really do want to work with us. I guess we'll give you a shot. There's plenty of times, again, the Quick Trip thing, and I'm not trying to sit here and talk about them, even though they rule. I just kept hitting them up. And they kept telling me, not right now, we're just not in podcasting. You could always hit us up later. And it took a year and a half of me messaging them before I finally got an email back. And it was we're actually going over next year's fiscal budget right now. This could be perfect time. Let's go.
Exactly.
Sick. And it was because I kept pushing them. I'm sure they got a lot of people who sent them one DM. I'm sure they even got a lot of people who sent them one email. But they didn't have that many people like me who were hitting them up every 3 months with here's all my media stuff. Here's all my Instagram. This is where I've grown. This is why I want to work with you. You really stand apart in that way. And I interviewed this dude, Bryson Roach, a long time ago. He's the younger brother of Jacoby, the singer of Papa Roach. And he does social media campaigns for rock stars and stuff. And I asked them that too. How do you get a hold of people like that? And he's well, you just hit them from every angle, man.
Yeah.
If you send them a DM, LinkedIn, Facebook, look up their email, hit the PR. they'll go, I've seen this name like it's 4 times.
Fine line of being a nuisance, but yet relative, man.
That's what I'm saying. I think in the business world, you almost like can't be too much of a nuisance. I want to hear a little bit more about the California one, because I didn't see anything about that really besides like it listed. I gotta imagine when you get hired for that, you just like have a ton of nerves of like, oh, I hope I'm ready for this. This might be my only window. Like, what did that experience look like?
So in terms of that, especially when I get still booked for tourism work, you know, it's like, okay, it's the relief of getting the contract, signing it, but then at the same time, not to be like a Debbie Downer or like a dark cloud. It was like, okay, I got the gig. Let me live until I can get to this experience, you know? So once I get to that aspect, it really doesn't sink in until I hit the airport. I'm like, oh crap, I have X, Y, and Z to do, expectations. Like they're really banking on me to showcase whether it's a smaller city, smaller town, mountainous ranges, and so forth, you know?
Yeah,
but Visit California was my first traveling gig. And then they sent me, and I got to pick my brother and his fiance at the time.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's like assistants or whatever? Or
so just for comfort traveling, you know, because they're sending me out there by myself. Like I need some family around me, especially this city guy going into Yosemite to the Sierra Nevada mountains, so to speak. And that was a 5-day journey, which was pretty cool.
What was it all showing? Was it state parks and stuff, or like what all did you do for them?
Yeah, so the cliche one was Yosemite.
Okay.
So each day it was a pretty gnarly trip. Like we were there for a day-ish.
Yeah.
We go to Yosemite. They have the cabin ready for us. I'd shoot for 10 to 12 hours, just maximizing opportunity for nature. And like the whole premise was like just get away and escape, you know?
Right, sure.
Through the Northern California range.
Sure.
So it was Yosemite, and then went out to like the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains to Lake Mono.
Yeah.
Mono.
Okay.
I should know how to say that, but
I'm not sure.
It's one of the two.
Yeah.
And then it looped us back into the Bay Area.
Sure.
So it was a mixture of 90% mountainous, beautiful peaks and ranges, and then into the city.
So you weren't taking picture of your brother and his girlfriend. It wasn't like showing off, this is a romantic place where this is their silhouette. You could be here. It wasn't like that.
Not at the time, no. I got some personal portraits of them, but it was primarily to showcase like through their like airports, and then obviously like their social media of just beautiful imagery.
Yeah. At the time when you got that contract, did you have any idea what to really even charge for it? Or was it just kind of like, as long as I break even, this would be great for my portfolio. Let's just do it.
Yeah. I was stoked to make in the thousands with that.
Yeah.
Especially as your first gig, you're like, okay, this is like the window. So I knew there was a ceiling potentially, but it was a great place to like lay the foundation down for the price point. I accepted it, and that led to other gigs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how it works with a lot of stuff. I tell people that with mural work all the time. You know, like the only reason I've gotten paid to do murals is because I did other ones for like less than minimum wage, basically. But because then I have in my portfolio of like, look, I did this thing. The first time I worked with a music festival, I was not paid. But I wanted to be able to show like I can set up and I can do impromptu interviews that are not set up with anyone that I have not met. They're going to be valuable. It'll turn out for socials. Then I could show that and say I made this many views, this many interviews backstage, even when there's noise. I could do this at your music festival with this lineup. And I could do it better because I can reach out to all these people in advance, and I can have everything set up the way I want. This will be valuable to you, and here's exactly why. I think a big part of it in anything with business is like, you got to not take it personally and realize that like you need to show them hard facts to show them exactly why this is worth it. And like from a numbers standpoint, if you can't have any kind of like actual tangible measurable thing to show them why something is worth something, it's really, really hard to get anyone to invest.
Yeah. And then you're just doing a lot of talking with no work to show. And that makes a lot of sense. Like to piggyback off your experience with the murals and stuff, that's how it was through not only the traveling aspect, but just companies in general, working with Under Armour or Jordan Brand. You know, there's highs and lows to get to those places, you know? So it's like having that body of work that the client can visually see can go a long ways.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, we're just in a day and age where everyone talks just like I am right now, but no one delivers, right? So if you actually just do the things you're going to say you're going to do, and if you have a whole backlog of it and say, okay, you can easily see how I did this for Jordan and how your products could fit and it would look similar, but in your branding, like it's hard for them to say no because they know exactly what they're getting.
And that's the hard part sometimes. Like it's easier said than done, so to speak. You know, it's like a lot of people just want to project and say what they want to do, but they don't want to lay the foundation down, get in the trenches and practice shooting for a client without getting paid for it, you know? Because you're always pitching your work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like a fake it till you make it thing, but there's like a wide range there of like fibbing a little bit to get an opportunity versus just like not doing the work and lying about it, right? Precisely. Because if you do say, well, I could do that, you know, the fake it till you make it, you have to then be able to deliver on the thing. And I do think you should do that to a certain degree to like push yourself outside of your comfort zone, but not like drastically. You know what I mean? Like maybe of the entire project that you're doing, there's one area of that you haven't done yet. But you know you'll be able to figure it out, but not something like totally different. Sure. Because if you burn a bridge with the wrong person, you know, as 7-8 billion, however many people are on this planet, there's not that many people that are involved specifically with tourism departments with all the states, right?
And I've been told there's a blacklist when it comes to the creativity sides and tourisms. For example, I was in South Bohemia and Czech Republic on a cycling trip.
Yeah.
And I'm pedaling my butt off, dude. Like I was way over my head, putting in 80, 100-mile rides.
Oh, God.
Signed the contract thinking it was going to be a light ride, but they wanted like everything, like from cycling to the suffering. And our host, Yuri, he's like, Jarvis, you're a good sport, man. We know you don't cycle like that. You're suffering, but you're doing a great job. You're not, sorry for like a better word.
Good.
But, yeah. And then that led to a conversation about like, there's a blacklist of photographers and videographers and creatives in the tourism agency because it is such a small pool.
And that's the case though across like most industries is there's not that the actual network of people who are making decisions on all that is not that big. So if you under deliver drastically, it can really like hurt you long term. Not that anything's ever over. You can always have more opportunities, but still.
No, but that you hit it perfectly because as large as my brand is particularly in Wisconsin and obviously like across the seas, I'm sorry, but I take pride in shooting smaller clients, so to speak, and still giving them my best work because there's always going to be word of mouth, especially with social media too, like pushing that, like you don't want to under deliver your work, no matter who the client is, you know, like you mentioned with your murals, the murals, you're going to do the highs and lows, the smaller clients, the bigger clients, and then like a happy medium that's going to keep you paid as well. Yeah.
Well, and sometimes you bite off more than you can chew, but you still have to deliver. And even though that in that moment doesn't make sense for you financially, because you're like, wow, this is actually going to take twice as much time as I thought, but I told them this price, I said I was going to deliver. You still have to do it. In my mind, you just eat that cost as a lesson of like, I know how to budget myself in the future better. But the people who do the opposite, where they're like, well, I'm just over budget now. Again, that's a thing that I think you have to eat that mistake, not your client, because it'll hurt you way more in the long run.
Yeah, that's well said because, man, there's been plenty of opportunity and days and experience from my photography past where you bit off more than you chew and like, okay, for X amount of money, I have to do this and deliver this and this quick turnaround time. But that you live and learn with that, and that makes you hopefully a better person in terms of communication, in terms of like how to set yourself up when you're talking and negotiating with clients, and then letting your artwork do the talking too.
Yeah, I think in general with everything, when you own a business, being conservative with what you think you can do when you're promising somebody, right, is you always give yourself more time than you think you'll need. If you're like, well, I should have this done by Wednesday, you say, I'll have it there to you by Friday. And then hopefully you still get it to him by Wednesday. You know what I mean? But you kind of learn like how much wiggle room you need with things in order to get stuff done. So let's get back to the Helsinki thing. So you did the thing with California, and that was primarily going to Yosemite, like showing off the nature of California, which California and Colorado, I think, are the two states that like have so much more to them than people realize.
Yeah, and this was solely based like a Northern California feel.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. The diversity of the geography of that state alone, when you if you could jump in your car, drive 6 hours, you could see drastically different things and be like, this is the same state. Exactly. So anyways, so you did that. And then you said you sent emails and got a hold of somebody from Helsinki's in Finland, right? So how did you align that contract? Was it like a come here for a month and kind of show off whatever? Did they have like a shot list of like, these are the ones we're promoting, or how did it work?
Yeah. So for budget wise, when you work with these agencies, you're going to save at max 10 days at the most. And that's pushing it, so to speak, because of the budget. But for me, I was pitching fast turnaround time. I was pitching, obviously, my name, my brand that was coming out there. But for me, like my whole spiel was to shoot fast, shoot well, and deliver quickly. So I think that was a great selling point, and Helsinki bought it, and we ended up being like partners for many years until this day.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, when you work with larger companies, especially with anything involved with the city, which a lot of times the touring department or tourism department is kind of like connected to the city, there's just a lot of red tape for everything.
Yeah.
You know, so when it's just one person, it's like, whoa, you can really do this without going through a million approval processes.
And that was the fascinating thing. Like Helsinki really opened up the doors and gave me the love of embracing the country.
Yeah.
And that paid off big times. It gave me the confidence again. It gave me just a boatload of opportunities because their whole thing was it's my Helsinki, so it's your experience, you know?
Yeah.
So my first trip there, they gave me basically the keys to wander and explore, be a local, document that, and have that try to piece that into a story about Helsinki.
Sure.
And that was 2017, my first trip.
Yeah.
Like once again, back in those days, no one was really talking about Helsinki and like the Nordics like that, you know?
Sure. Yeah. So when you work with things like a tourism department, usually they have things that like have to be showcased, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's like in their contracts, because partially how they're paid is because these businesses are putting ad dollars in. So they want to like feature it. So I'm surprised that they didn't have anything on a list. They didn't have like, you have to hit this museum, you have to hit this, you have to hit this. It just was like freedom.
Yeah. No, I mean, you hit that perfectly because they're always going to be an itinerary, so to speak, you know. So going there months leading up to the trip, they gave me an itinerary, like, or this one, because my Helsinki was pretty much relaxed compared to working with other places.
Yeah,
they gave me suggestions, lightly, like in quotations, suggestions on what to shoot, whether it's cliche, however, like the pitch was again, go to the places that are obviously popular in Helsinki, but find your own way into the city.
Yeah. So how did it develop from there? Because you've done a lot of like you have done product photography for brands like Jordan, you know, and you've done a bunch of portrait work and stuff like that. It's not like you're only doing landscape, but it sounds like that was still for the most part landscape kind of photography. So how did it move from there? Did it go into portrait stuff right away? Because it seems like you skipped the whole wedding thing that most people do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I do dabble in weddings, but I only take like 3 or 4 a year.
Sure.
You know, just because, you know, for me, that's another story that wedding photography is the hardest genre to shoot ever.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say this on camera, but I hate it, but
everyone I know who's a photographer doesn't enjoy shooting a wedding. It's long hours. Like you got to work all day. Yeah. There's a lot of stress with all the other people involved. You know, you only have the one shot to hit this one thing. And it's so much emotion involved in people's like life where you're like, I have to make this be something exactly the way that they're thinking, but I can't look inside their brain, inside their brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's another story. But the whole itinerary phase when it comes to hitting your marks with working with these companies is very important, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like for me, when I'm traveling with these agencies, I have a guide, which is perfect, you know?
Oh, cool.
So I'm not totally off the rails. Like there's certain factors they set you up with in advance.
Sure. How did it evolve from there? Were you just doing tourism type things like that all over the world for a little while, or what did it go to?
I'd say for a good year-ish.
Oh, cool. How many countries did you go to?
I had that time man.
Did you fill up your passport book a couple of times by now?
Just once.
Oh, okay.
Just once, because I was just taming the beast, so to speak, because like I would hit a certain genre of photography, and then I'd study and find a new photographer that I was stoked on. I'm like, okay, man, I think there's so much more I can do, whether it's commercial work. And that led to leaving the traveling photography aspect for a little bit because I didn't want to be pigeonholed.
Yeah,
It's just a travel photographer because deep down I knew like, yes, architecture, landscapes, mountains, anyone can shoot that with a beautiful sunrise, sunset. I'm like, man, I want to dig deeper into the weeds and like shoot portraiture and tell stories through people. And that led to commercial work tapped in with product photography too.
Yeah. So what was the first one that you did for that? And was it just like one of those things where they're like, oh, here's tourism, but we want you to take photos for this specific building? Or like how did it work? Yeah.
So to basically not necessarily get away from travel photography, but to branch out into a different genre, it was the Under Armour gig that I worked with. And that was just a shoe, but like I got to play around and like meet people and shoot a model with the shoe. Yeah. And that gave me the confidence to just promote more work. And like the Jordan brand aspect, they reached out to me, which was a surprise.
Yeah. Were they like the number one dream client at the time?
Oh, for sure. Especially coming from the basketball background, man. And it just aligned. And that came back from like being in Milwaukee, small Milwaukee, you know?
Yeah.
Because Marquette University is a Jordan brand school.
Sure.
And they're doing a promotional run with that. So they're looking at Milwaukee photographers and they reached out to me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I saw the photos or at least some of the products from that. And I'm like, that just seems like the dream opportunity. Like it can't get a whole lot better than that, right?
Man, and looking back at those days, like, once again, like you mentioned, like your mural, like the mural experiences, there's so much more that I could have done better.
Yeah.
But you're given that opportunity, you're given that contract, and you have to execute with what you have at the time, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, the budget's different too, right? It's like when they hire you for that, even if they are putting the confidence behind you, they're paying what they think this person would be worth, which was accurate at the time, right? Like clearly your rate would be higher now, which is why you would be able to do a better job, which then if they want to invest more, then they can do that. So it's like one thing I've learned with my career, and I say it a lot, is just try to be kind to yourself in every situation, because the truth of the matter is you did the best that you could with what you had at that moment. Right. Yes. Like you don't do the type of thing you're doing because you're lazy. You're a driven person, right? And anyone who's in that field is a driven person. It's just like you did the best you could in that moment. We all make mistakes. We don't know everything about everything yet. We never do, right? So if I look at my own interviews from a year ago, even though I'd already been doing the show for 4.5 years, I'm like, those suck.
Yeah, you can
know,
always be
because you keep getting better.
Yeah, no, that's totally one of the most important things you can take away from building a career is showing some grace with yourself. You know, you can beat yourself up and you can be this Goggin-esque person, you know, but have some grace and have some dignity about yourself and like where you can go.
Yeah.
And that goes a long ways.
Did you ever read or watch Naruto, that anime when we were kids?
I did not, man.
Okay, so that like came out, the manga, like the comic books came out when we were like middle school, right? And then it became way more popularized with like younger kids years later when they like translated into English. But I used to read it when I was a kid. But in it, like one of the main characters, Naruto is like the main character, this like little ninja kid. And his like sensei, like the teacher dude, basically said to him, regardless of how strong you are, you're always going to find somebody who is both younger than you and stronger than me. And I really like that lesson, as funny as that is to relate it to. That is the truth with everything in our careers too, right? It's really easy to get bummed on yourself because you're always naturally looking around at people on your general level to compare, right? And there's always going to be somebody who's younger, who's better, who's making more money, at least on the surface, than you are. And if you like look at that, it's like, oh man, now I don't feel good about it. But if you look at yourself a year ago, you're like, oh, okay, I am doing well.
Peaks and valleys, dude. As cliche as it sounds, but that makes a lot of sense. And like for me in my career, I have a core group of friends that are in the Chicago area that I met through Instagram.
Yeah.
That we've been friends for, 15 years or so, whenever we started Instagram. But one of the most important factors in my life and my career and how I was able to excel was having these 3 or 4 group of friends that were witty, funny, but however, they would criticize my work. Every time I'd post it, whether it was personal, professional, they'd be like, oh, Jarvis, this sucks. Why did you color grade this? Why is this shot this way?
Yeah.
And you have to have thick skin, but at the same time, coming back to your statement, like being kind to yourself. And like, I think if you surround yourself with like-minded people in your career, because we're such like a small community at the end of the day, I think that goes a long ways too.
Yeah, well, and criticism is the only way that you grow, right? Like if you were doing everything that was easy for you and you were doing it perfectly, you're not actually seeing growth. So it's like walking that line of like being confident and like feeling good about what you're doing, but knowing that this isn't the best you're ever going to do, right? Yes. You're only going to be able to do better from there. I'm curious, when you said that you did the Under Armour thing, was that another one where you were like looking up their PR people, their marketing teams, and like sending a bunch of emails to get that first contract, or did they hit you up?
Yeah, they hit me up, and like I caught a perfect way of opportunity again, man. Like the Jordan brand from the Under Armours. They messaged me.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's all who you know, right? It's like if you do right by one person, then somebody in their network, which you have no idea who's in their network and who's in their cell phone, sees this other thing, which sees this other thing, which sees this other thing. Like my buddy Austin Bauer is a videographer who lives 3 houses away from me, and he helps me with stuff all the time. Like he's filmed like Quick Trip ads with me and stuff, right? He did this stuff for this big casino chain, Ho Chunk Gaming. Well, it was one tiny thing he did 2 years ago. And then the following year, they had a little bit bigger project, but not that big. And they're like, well, we trust him. You do it.
Stay in a rotation.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden this year, when they had like a big project that I don't know if he was the right person for it yet, he's going to do a great job. But it was just like, oh, we know this person. We're comfortable with this person. Boom. And then all of a sudden he's paying actors and we're like all at the hotel to go film all this content. And I'm like, What, your career really grew, my man.
Exactly, dude. Like, I just saw you. Wow, man, you're progressing. And he's like, this whole time I've been in the trenches. I know what I'm doing. I have this rapport with this large entity, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So when did you start doing portrait stuff? Was it at the same time you're doing product photography or not really?
I would say with the Jordan brand that really opened my eyes. I think I mentioned like I wanted to do I wanted to do portraiture.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't or didn't have like the body of work to present that, you know? And that came with the Jordan brand to do portrait work.
Did you have like a lot of confidence in the work when you did that? Because I'm sure you have confidence in the things you've already proven like are good. But then when you're like moving into a new space, this happens with people as adults in general, is they have a hard time being bad at stuff because they feel like by my age, I should just be good at the things I do. Yeah. But when you expand into an area that you're not that comfortable with, you're not going to be amazing at it yet, right? But they hired you for something you were already good at. So did you have a lack of confidence of like, I don't know if this side is good?
Oh, no, dude. I mean, as mellow as I can appear, like I've always had this tenacity and this confidence in my body of work, especially coming from the Midwest in Milwaukee. I'm like, man, put my in Chicago, put me in New York, put me in LA, and I would crush it. So like for me, this whole mindset of being in the Midwest, it was creating something out of nothing. And that led to like, okay, if I can put myself in a room shooting portraiture with people or landscape, and if I can make it somewhat interesting and have people talking about it, imagine what I can do when my name rings bells in bigger companies, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you're kind of pulling in different things, right? Because most people who focus on portraits are just focused on the portrait. So you're coming in from a different angle of like, I know all these other things that I can incorporate into it.
And I think that came from like the landscape and the architectural background and like seeing different places and people like, okay, anyone can shoot a person up against the wall, but like, what's the story being told? You know, like where are they? What's the time of day? What's the setting like? You know, like I tried to incorporate the people that I document. Like, okay, what's the story? You know?
Did you ever feel like you outgrew? Obviously, like you do stuff outside of Milwaukee, but when we're like talking from way before, you have friends all over the country, right? And you know, like a lot of these job opportunities happen when you're just like, oh, we're at this event in person. Oh, have you ever met Jarvis? This guy's great with blah, blah, blah. Like a lot of opportunities do come that way. Did you ever feel limited being in Milwaukee? Like maybe you need to leave?
Yeah, there was definitely a stigma. I hate it because I love you, Milwaukee. There was definitely a stigma 2014, 15, 16-ish. You know, all my core photography friends were in Chicago, in the city, in the Loop. Yeah. Catching gigs with Nike Chicago. I'm like, man, if I could just be there in Chicago. So like I said, to get, when I was fired from my first job, I'd visit Chicago frequently. Yeah. And back in those days, there's like a pride or a patch you put in your bio, Chicago/Milwaukee photographer and so forth, you know? Yeah. Looking back, it's so corny, but like, man, definitely was stigmatized. I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like I was stigmatized being in a smaller city, even though we're relatively large, but it was small Milwaukee back in those days.
I feel like anytime though that you're in a different position, you just start to look at things differently and different types of opportunities come up, right? Because if you're in a place like Chicago and all these opportunities are coming up, I feel like people almost start to rely on those relationships then to find their jobs, right? Because it's like, oh, these are all the things that are happening. When you're in a different spot and you don't have access to that, you have to problem solve and you're like, well, maybe I'll email Helsinki. You know what I mean? Because people in Chicago, they weren't doing that.
Yeah, and that's I feel like that's been part of my brand, as you mentioned before. Like, okay, there's so much saturation going on in Chicago now because they're doing this. There's a huge pull of creatives versus 5 to 10 people in Milwaukee. Okay, let me think outside the box, and that led to, like you just mentioned, Helsinki. Like everyone's traveling to the Faroe Islands. Remember that wave when everyone was going to Faroe Islands, Dubai? Yeah, like why not touch base with the Nordics and see what's going on there, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever taken jobs that were more just for you? You know what I mean? Like, obviously you got to make money too, but like I did a mural in Puerto Rico that was just like a vacation pretty much. Vibes. You know, it's not like I made money really, but I did get to go to,
and it was good for your soul. Like,
I had fun with that one. Yeah. You know what I mean? But and sometimes when you're working with brands, it's like not everybody has the right budget. So you have to be careful of like, well, I can't do work for free, but I really want to do this one. So I've made some decisions with the show where I'm like, this interview financially was not a good investment, but I like really wanted to do it. Like I drove to Texas to interview the editor of Thrasher.
And
they put it like the show is on the front page of thrashermagazine.com.
That's rad.
But like, not that brought me a bunch of listeners or something necessarily. And was it worth driving all the way to Texas for from like the financial side? No. But I got to interview the editor of Thrasher. It was pretty dope,
dude, just like Jim Greco, man. Life hammers. That probably was a life hammer for you, dude.
Dude, it was something that was like on my list forever. It was like I sent the DM to him because Michael Sieben, I was a big fan of his art forever.
Yeah.
And when he said, yeah, I'll do it, I was like, sick, I'm coming to Texas.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, you don't want to just do it virtually? I was like, no, I
dude,
want to go meet you in Texas, dude.
That's when you know you're built different.
Yeah, well, yeah, very true. So what was the last job that you took that was not necessarily about the money? That was more just like, ooh, this one's for me. I really want to do that.
I would say when I worked with Visit Denmark.
Oh, cool.
The budget wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I was there for 2 days, dude.
Oh.
Yeah, but I made the most of it. Like I knew, like for you, like I've always wanted to go to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Just be immersed in the culture, experience it. So they gave me a small window of opportunity, and I took it and ran with it.
Have you ever had any kind of hairy situations when you're traveling by yourself and you have expensive camera equipment on you?
Yeah,
you're
totally.
Just like going places.
You're definitely on your P's and Q's. And I think my most sketchy moment was my past trip in August in Marseille, France, down by the Mediterranean. It was basically felt like being in a city of pirates, man. So,
oh man, yeah, have you ever had like lost any gear? Or had any issues with that stuff?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm a larger guy, 6'2", whatever. Like I can handle my own. But in terms of being like stupidity and losing my equipment, I'd say my formative years in photography, just being too stoked on a photo shoot, and just leaving my stuff behind.
Sure, I think one of the best things as far as like growth and when you show your skill is when you know how to prevent problems, you know, because a lot of people have an eye and can do something, but when you have to do something for a client, a lot of times you don't have that many opportunities to get this thing right. You just learn all these little fail safes, you know, like when we took our break, I was like, I'm going to start and stop my cameras. That was because one time my camera memory card filled up and I lost that interview. Yeah. Now I know to stop it in the middle. You know what I mean? What are some things that you do that help you prevent mistakes from happening?
See, that's perfectly said, man. That separates you from the amateurs and the pros. Yeah. You know, knowing that fail safe, knowing your not your limit, but just knowing what to expect in the future. You know. But for me, I'd say when to say no to a client is a big one, and knowing my capabilities in my brand of photography. Like, sure, I could do like a fashion photography editorial shoot, but that's not really my bag per se, because it comes with most likely like a full day's worth of shoots, whether it's lighting, having staff, etc. You know, like, so like having those opportunities, but knowing when to say no, because yes, it'd be cool to say I did this, but it might be a disaster, you know?
Yeah. How do you know when to say no? Because a lot of times it's not way, way beyond the ability of what you think you should be doing. A lot of times it's just kind of pushing. Mm-hmm. But when people do something they didn't really want to do, and then it snowballs to like pushing a little further, a little further, a little further. Like, how do you know where that line is of being like, you know, even though I'm grateful that you wanted to give me this opportunity, this isn't in the best interest for me? Yeah.
I'd say just experience. You have to go through hell and back, so to speak, you know, especially when you're starting out with photography and whatever genre you want to immerse yourself in. I think it's good to just go through the fire, and then you know a little bit more about yourself and like when to say no. And that could be a wedding photography gig. It could be a commercial gig. It could be a traveling aspect, whether it's like, okay, Thailand can hit me up like, oh, this sounds amazing, but however, the logistics don't line up.
Yeah.
But you want to take it. But it's just having that foresight and that information from past experiences when you go on gigs is like, okay, am I going to burn myself out? Is it worth it, or is it going to be detrimental, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you have to be able to learn how to like navigate through the mistakes that you make. Sometimes those mistakes are like overcommitting to something that you're like, wow, this is more than I can realistically do. Then you have to pay somebody to help. Yeah. Now you've lost money on this thing, but you still have to deliver the thing that you said you were going to deliver. Yeah. And that's when the learning happens. And unfortunately, sometimes that's just what it is.
Yeah. And it's happened to me once, particularly, I won't mention like the client and so forth, but I bit off way more than I can chew.
Yeah.
Because back, it was 2 years ago, I wasn't heavily into video, but now I am.
Sure.
So I accepted this gig with the client. They wanted video as well. I'm like, okay, I can do both. Just being cocky, just being confident. I'm like, okay. And then once the contract came through and like I had a week or two to let that sit and resonate, I'm like, Jarvis, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I shot it, obviously did the photography, and I did video myself, and then came back home. I'm like, wow, I have to edit these videos, and that's an entirely different beast. So like you said, I lost money having to pay somebody, a videographer friend that could do it for me. And that was like a learning lesson. Like, okay, if I want to do that, go back to the drawing board and learn how to do the things that I can work with.
Yeah, but it's a really valuable lesson, right? Because now you know how to navigate those things in the future. And it's just like, unfortunately, you have to go through the negative times to be able to learn how to avoid those, how to put yourself in a better position for kind of anything. It's like, if you only have wins, then you're not really growing that much. Every time you have a loss is when you learn something from that will help you in a more difficult situation later on.
Oh, for sure. That's been one of my favorite aspects in like embracing this journey of photography and shooting professionally and freelancing for so long, was taking L's and being okay with that, but not okay with it. But like we harken back on like giving yourself grace, but like going through these highs and lows and taking L's and learning how to navigate that is very important.
Yeah. Well, I think clients are pretty understanding too, if you're just honest with them about things, right? If you're like, because I'm sure this has happened to you at some point where who knows, SD card got erased or whatever, but like you couldn't deliver on something that you said you were going to. This was a moment in time that needed to be shot, and that moment isn't going to happen again. It's not like you can reshoot this first kiss of the wedding or whatever. But if you're upfront and you're honest with people, like, everyone knows that they're human. Have you ran into that before? And what did you do?
Yeah, it's very important to rip the Band-Aid off and just talk to them, because at the end of the day, yes, we're working as professionals, but we're human, you know? Yeah. If you can talk about the conflict and try to find a way to maneuver through that and maybe come up with like a different way to just progress your work.
Yeah. Well, and solve the problem for them, right? It's like, if people can still trust that you're being honest, it's totally different than if you weren't being honest and you didn't deliver. If you were very honest and upfront and it wasn't an excuse, it was like a real thing. Hey, this just like happened. How do we move forward? You didn't lose the client's trust yet. So you can still repair it and fix the situation. And you never know what other opportunities are going to come up. Sometimes this thing didn't work out. Well, okay, but now we could do this thing instead. And it ends up opening up a different door or whatever. It doesn't end up being, anytime I've ran into an issue, it's never as big of an issue as I built it up into my mind.
Dude, you know what I mean? No, for sure. And there's always going to be, not always, but there's always a chance of, especially with photography, losing your gear or dropping your gear. I've done that. I was on a gig and literally was switching my lens and it said right to the ground and smashed. And I'm looking around like, man, and this is one of my prime sharp lenses. Okay, so now I'm gonna have to maneuver around that and just shoot wide, but like make it work. And that come with experiences. And another past failure a couple of years ago, I was doing post-processing editing, and half like their images got wiped out from my computer, and that was a whole spiel to navigate around.
Dude, I think one of the biggest things with professionals though is just learning how to problem solve. Like I've said this quite a few times, but I think successful people never look at something of like, if I can do this thing, it's just how can I do this thing, right? And if you are willing to like put in the work to solve whatever the problem is, then like you can kind of handle pretty much anything. It's just too many people only know how to do this one thing that works out well, but they don't really know how to navigate all the other things that come up. It's kind of funny to relate this with skateboarding, but it's like with skateboarding and skating at a skate park where everything's like ideal, you know, versus you watch people skating in the streets on videos on Thrasher or whatever. You don't know that there is all these cracks right before this. You don't know that there's heavy traffic right there that's in the way, but they still made that thing happen, you know, because they wanted to.
And that's why I wish more people would tap into like the behind the scenes aspect of filming for a part. They have no idea that they're looking at a 2-second clip that took hours or weeks or months to get, you know, and like to stem from that, from like the athletic background and from my formative years of skateboarding. I think it's like one of the most mind-shifting, mindful aspects you could create, because you're learning how to thrive under pressure. Like you can literally die or break your neck or a bone just from a certain trick going wrong. And I think like I've taken that aspect when it comes to athletics and skateboarding into my photography.
You mentioned earlier something about like having photographers that you look to for inspiration and those kind of changing over time. Who are like the 3 most influential photographers that you've ever been affected by, that you looked up to?
So 2 that really stuck out to me because I was immersed in the Instagram world. You know, there is a photographer out of California named Ravi Vora.
Okay.
Out of LA. beautiful scenery photography, a lot of landscape, but he would sprinkle in portraiture and commercial work, which was like right up my alley. So,
and that was just seeing it through Instagram that you were like inspired by that.
Yeah, but like I would go to Instagram, but I would like at the time when I was building my website, I would go to their website and like, okay, they're working with Jordan Brand too, so competitor, but like, what did he do that I can do differently, and so to speak.
Did you ever reach out to him? No. Like connect with any of these people?
No, dude.
Man.
One I reached out to, we had conversations about meeting up and like exploring the city.
Yeah, it just didn't happen, sure.
Yeah, I feel like they were threatened by my work, especially one in particular.
Yeah.
But dude.
Thankfully, I really haven't had negative experiences with like pretty much anybody that I was like stoked to meet. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Like everyone's had negative experiences, but anybody that I like built up on a pedestal, like I'm excited to meet this person, they've all been super cool. I'm like so lucky that that's been the case. I really haven't run into like people feeling threatened by me or anything. And part of it is like everything I do is very positive and uplifting, and I'm just promoting other people.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, that promotes myself, but like I'm promoting other people's work. And I'm not doing anything where it's really conflicting with anyone. Even like other podcasts and stuff, I'm the only one who like travels to do a video in-person interview like this in the state. Nobody else does that.
It's amazing.
You know, so like even Milwaukee and Cut, we've had a couple of the same guests, and I've been a guest on their show. They've been on mine. They're rad people. Their show is about Milwaukee. So it's not the same at all. There's really no reason for us to be like competing, because we're not competing. We're just different people doing different things. But in something like photography, it's oversaturated with how many people are trying to do it. Not enough contracts that are available. And so because of that, there's that scarcity mindset. Everyone's like trying to get a piece of the pie, and there's like not that much pie.
Yeah, no, for sure. So like Ravi, and then like an OG from everyone in the photography world knows Steve McCurry from National Geographic and his decades long of work. He's been a huge inspiration from like for me, like from afar. I've never talked to him, but that led to me like reaching out to Nat Geo and making a connection with them, which I've never talked about publicly.
Yeah.
Like we have an idea set up to shoot with them and time. Like this is all stuff I'm telling you in real time right now. Oh my God. Pun intended, but it's just, I think it just goes to my work in working quietly, you know.
What can you share about what those are going to be?
I can't mention the Nat Geo, but like for time, we're working with Milwaukee, particularly in like inner city.
Yeah.
I mean, Milwaukee gets a bad rep for like crime rates and so forth because there's a lot of work to be done, but we're just trying to showcase a different side.
Yeah. What goals do you have of like, for me, getting on Thrasher was like a big goal of mine, and that happened, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. For me, it's time.
Oh, okay.
Talking to them in real time again.
Yeah.
And having these conversations and like actually being in meetings with them over the phone and them knowing my name.
Yeah.
Obviously that's cool, but like the goal is to like get published work from them.
Yeah, well, and published work is like very different, like having something in print versus on social media, right? So I gotta assume this is going way back, but when you first moved into actually using DSLRs and all of that, I gotta think some of the motivation was like iPhone photos can look good when they're this small, but at some point you want to blow things up and have it bigger, whether it's in like an actual publication. Sometimes it's still on a screen, but other times like you have photos printed huge, you know, and you sell photos in that kind of way too, right? Yes. So like, I guess, when did you start trying to sell individual photos like that? Has that always been kind of part of it?
No, 2013, my first purchase was my first purchase of a sold photo was a little like 6x4 photos. Got $20 for it, and I was stoked, and I still have that $20. I swear to you, I still have it because it was such like a monumental moment in my career.
Yeah.
Progressing, but like once I had a DSLR camera, like I knew like sky was the limit in terms of publication, like printing large images and body of work.
Sure. What other goals do you have with it now? So you want to be in time. Are there certain countries you want to go to? Are there certain events you want to be a part of? Do you want to be somebody who's at Inauguration Day taking photos? Like what other goals do you have that are up there?
For the traveling aspect, I'd say Japan is high on the list.
Have you never been there?
No.
Dude, I've been to Japan.
Damn,
dude, it's sick. First country I've ever been to still is like, that's my favorite place.
Set the bar for you. I'm sure you probably go to other countries like, man, this isn't Japan. It's not futuristic. So that's definitely, definitely one for me is Japan. And then going back to the tourism agencies, I had a client, I was supposed to work with them in China, but that was 2019. And then we know what happened.
Yeah, sure.
The year after that. So that got postponed.
Yeah.
But I'd say Japan, Hawaii. I have connections with Visit Maui, so we have some stuff brewing up for that.
Have you been to Hawaii?
No, I was supposed to go again, but it got shut down because of...
Yeah, sure. My sister got married out there. My brother-in-law works in location management and works on movies and stuff.
Oh, sick.
And like a ton of movies and TV shows have been filmed out there.
Do you know what island?
We were on Oahu.
Okay.
And so like they got married in the valley that in the first Jurassic Park movie where they like hide behind the little log and there's the stampede. Like that's where they had their first kiss, their wedding ceremony. Yeah, it was pretty epic. What does your career look like these days? I know it's obviously like very different day to day, week to week, month to month, because it's all, I'm sure, based on individual contracts. But do you primarily still just kind of work alone? About how much of your time goes into commercial versus travel versus just your own artistic things? Like, what does it kind of look like?
Yeah, so you call me at an interesting time because I was freelancing for 6.5 years, solo dolo, Bronco, this cowboy in the Wild West. Marching at the sound of my own drum. And then almost 3 years ago, there's a local coffee establishment, Stone Creek.
Yeah.
They have 9 shops in Wisconsin.
Oh, cool.
And I was just a patron.
Yeah.
Loved their coffee, obviously. Their croissants, I'd post on my stories, and that happened organically. So long story short, started doing freelancing work for them back in 2022.
Yeah.
But they would just keep me on the radar. I would shoot monthly installments with them. But I would still create my own schedule in terms of freelancing work, so traveling, working with different entities, whether it's a factory job, whether it's working with medical equipment or scientists. Like I've been in the full spectrum. But like I said, you called me at an interesting time because now I shoot full time with Stone Creek.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing is like I can still create my own schedule and they give me the grace to still freelance when needed.
Sure. Did you mostly do that just because you want to be able to settle and stay here locally more, just for like your own personal life and slowing down a little bit as far as like being able to sleep in your bed?
Yeah. I'd say like the slowing down aspect from being out in the Wild West, dude, for so long.
Yeah.
It just made sense. Like they offered me a beautiful opportunity to still be creative and be in this whole world of coffee, which I love too.
Yeah. Is it like a non-compete situation where you can't work with like any other brands, or is it just like you can't promote other coffee?
For the non-compete with the coffee world.
Yeah, but otherwise you can still take any contract that you want to kind of go do whatever you want.
Yeah. Wow. And that's what's rad about them, dude. Like when they offered me the gig, like we know you've done X, Y, and Z, you travel, like just remember that this is a full-time gig, but we do give you grace to take other side jobs.
I think it's funny as we get older, we like stop trying to be something necessarily. Like I think when we're younger, we're like, if we don't live this epic life, then we're selling ourselves way short. And as we get older, we realize like no one cares if I've traveled the world 3 times or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, so you realize you don't actually have to do anything for anybody. And maybe it doesn't sound as glamorous working with a coffee company in Milwaukee as it would be to be like working on all these tourism things around the world. But it's what like completes your life in a way that brings you value, puts you in a position where you can just be happy and like relatively stress-free. I think what we value drastically changes.
And that leads with comfortability, man.
Yeah.
Being around, or literally flying around the world, taking jobs and being in different situations. Like I know myself, I love my work, and having that confidence and comfortability. Like, okay, Stone Creek is rad. They give me flexibility, and I can still do the jobs or side quests, that I want to do.
What was the last thing that you learned? Whether it was like life or career, could be something really small, like you learned how to use this thing in Lightroom or whatever. But what is the last thing that you learned?
I'd say since I'm starting to dabble a lot more into video, Premiere Pro is like, it's a whole different world, man. And I'm stoked on that. So as boring and mundane as it sounds, it's like different tweaks and telling a story through video, not just photography. And that's like my most recent.
How have you taught yourself to do that? Mostly just like YouTube type tutorials, or like what resources in general would you push people to use?
I'd say YouTube for sure. Like that's how my career was pushed up. Was I'm 100% self-taught. I didn't go to school for photography. Never took a formal class in my entire life. It's just learning on the fly, studying your equipment, which is important. A lot of people want to skip that part, but don't do it, okay? For real, don't do it. Study, like if you really want to be in this world, study your craft,
Yeah, I think one thing too is people, they see what other people are doing and they're like, oh, if I just spend money on this, I'm going to be better. But I think if you just learn the tools that are in front of you better, you can improve significantly more. Like I interviewed my buddy Sawyer Bryce, he's a photographer in Minneapolis, and he doesn't spend a ton of money on the equipment he uses.
See, dude.
He's like, because I'm not, it forces me to be more creative with this thing.
Yeah, and I'm pretty frugal with my equipment. Like I have some top tier things, but once you're comfortable in your equipment, you're comfortable like what you do and you present your work to a certain clientele, you really don't need I mean, it's nice to have that, but you don't have to constantly get the top tier things, because I'd be out in public walking around, and if I see someone with a nice camera, like, oh, do you shoot? Like your lens is like, thinking in my head, your lens is like $2,000 more than mine. I'm like, oh, no, not really. I'm just taking photos for hobby. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But like, you don't need to be pushed top tier brands.
Well, I think when you have that, it almost makes it too complicated too, right? Because there's just like too many features and stuff. If somebody wanted to get into photography right now, it's a little bit different than like when you were coming up and you just did an iPhone. Although I still feel like that wouldn't be a horrible route to like just use an iPhone for a few months and figure out what you're doing.
No, I was in last school semester, whatever, for high school. Have you heard of Union Grove? This small town, southwest. Don't quote me on the location, but
sure.
I talked in front of photography students, and I actually talked about like starting with the iPhone. Like, okay, it's the most basic form, it's the most usable format that everyone's using. It's definitely a great tool to utilize, like the iPhone. And then if you want to jump into the big leagues and get a DSLR, then that's a different ball game. But it's just baby steps.
Yeah. What would be like if somebody had $1,000 budget, or in general maybe less? What would be like a camera and lens combination they could buy that would be like, this would work for starting?
The beautiful thing is I probably get like 5 to 6 questions a year. Whether it's through Facebook, Instagram, about like starter kits, you know. And I give these people these starter kits and they get kind of bummed on it. Like, okay, but you're starting out. So like for me, like my first camera was a Canon T3 Rebel. Little small body, not a full frame, but it's a DSLR, and it came with a kit lens. So like my suggestion would be, what do you primarily want to photograph? You know, are you, if you're walking or just like point and shoot cameras, you can do that. But if you want to get into sports, you're going to need like a bigger body, faster lens. How do you pitch contracts? Just from like, I think a lot of people struggle to switch into a professional mode, right? And then you just see people complain on Instagram, like photographers need to be paid this much. And you're like, well, you're just like shooting your friend for lifestyle photos. So like, I don't know how much you think you're going to make. But how do you actually put together a pitch? For my show, I send a media kit that's like 10 pages that breaks down, these are my numbers across the different platforms. This is what a previous thing looks like and why. This is approximately how many views this product placement would get. So I like kind of like put all of that together and send it. How does it work for you? No, for sure. Media kits are very important. That's been a big deal, depending on like the gig. If they want to utilize my platform, the media kit comes in. It can be broken down into metrics with my Instagram. But then if I'm doing other things, whether it's more commercialized and not like Instagram oriented, definitely building a media kit, whether it's past shoots, word of mouth, in terms of like having a good reputation, I think goes a long way. If that's what you're like asking. How do you know how much to charge for it? And how do you do those? Like, because I've had a lot of people say, well, just ask the person for their budget. And that doesn't seem to ever work for me. So I'm just curious, how do you actually do that? I used to ask for like their budget from the rip, but these days I kind of like laid the groundwork. I think once again, just studying your demographic, your location, what's like the base rate for photographers in Milwaukee and Wisconsin. But then you have to go back to yourself and like, okay, am I capable of this rate? Yes, you want to get paid X amount of money per hour or per day rate. But for me, it's always finding that happy medium, because there's been a lot of times where I know I'm worth maybe $1,000 more, maybe $600 more, maybe $200 more. But you take that gig and you just run with it. So like that's been like one of the trickier parts is like judging and like putting your rate to a client.
And I think just knowing you don't actually owe anybody anything, right? Like you don't have to do this thing. I feel like a lot of companies and people try to guilt other people into doing things where it's like, if we take out the emotion here, this is exclusively just a business arrangement. And like whether or not this brings enough value has nothing to do if I like you as a person. And so I'm not going to be guilted into doing something that I don't want to do.
That's definitely tricky, man. That'll definitely happen a lot, especially when you're thick in the weeds and trying to negotiate contracts. Sometimes a client can take the warmth approach and trying to get to know you.
Yeah.
At the same time, you need to be mindful, like you just mentioned, like, okay,
yeah,
I know my worth, but at the same time, we're here to do a job, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the trickiest part is negotiation when it comes to contracts and pay rates and so forth.
Yeah. Well, that's like the least fun part of the job, right? So
yeah,
the most fun part is when you do things that you're passionate about for a living, you get to have unique experiences that are usually not money driven. You get to do all kinds of different things, whether it's like having an impact on this person because you went and spoke at this school or whatever, or you got to travel to this place.
No,
right?
totally, dude. And like my favorite thing about, like, I just talked to my twin about this yesterday. It was like having that comfortability with myself. Like everything that I purchase and pay for in my life comes through my creativity, my photography.
Yeah.
That's like very satisfying, you know?
Yeah. If you got to relive one day of your career, because you've had like a lot of pretty epic days, I'm sure, which would be the one day you would relive? And can you give me the breakdown of it?
Yeah. I'd say my Alaska trip with Alaska Airlines. We were hiking some pretty gnarly mountains that I was not qualified for as a city guy, but you took the gig, you know? So like having that time where I think I had 4 or 5 hours left till we boarded a small little jet plane to get back to Anchorage. I was in Cordova rainforest, but
there's a rainforest in Alaska.
Yeah, Cordova, Alaska, dude.
Okay,
it's pretty insane.
Yeah,
yeah, just like a classic rainforest, but mountainous peaks too. So we're hiking that, and we had this idea to just send it and like go into uncharted territories. And then I ended up being like 2 hours. Actually, no, ended up being like an hour ish late.
Wow.
Like leaving home.
Oh my God, dude. I guess I didn't realize that they had anything like that. I need to find a way to get out to Alaska. What are the other 3 places? Like if you had to pick 3 places you really wanted to go visit, you said Japan was high on the list. What are the other ones?
Japan, Turkey, a photographer that I looked up to, past tense, looked up to is from Turkey.
Sure.
Like, really inspired me to just take in the culture, the architecture, the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Japan, Turkey, and then I'd say probably in the States, Wyoming. I know it sounds cliche too, but like Jackson Hole would be cool.
Dude, I've driven through a little bit of that, but it's incredible. Well, dude, thank you so much for having me here. This was awesome. I'm glad that I finally got to be able to tell your story when you've been keeping it a secret from everyone all these years. Everyone needs to see a biography of you with all of your favorite photos, and then you could like tell the story exactly how you want. And you could even just like print it on, not Vistaprint, but whatever that online thing is, and have like 10 of them when you're at like an art show or something. But yeah, thank you so much again for having me. This was incredible.
Yeah.
What song should we use to end the show? Yeah, dude, I mean, I'm going to be back. So next time we got to hang out and do something where we're not working. Yeah, I mean, this is the best kind of work. Yeah. But we'll have to grab a beer or something next time.
Grab some beers, dude, for sure.
Yeah.
Plenty of red spaces here.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.